So, hi everybody again, and hello to Unmani, who's joining us from India. Hi Unmani.
Hello. Hi Grace and everybody.
So lovely to see you. I'm glad that things worked out, that you can join us from India. It's not always easy, and sometimes there are a bit of technical difficulties with the internet connection there. So hopefully everything will be good. But in case she disappears at some point, just bear with us, she'll join us again. So our first topic for the series, Life Challenges, is loss and grief. And Unmani has been sharing very touchingly on Facebook just the unfolding of the death of her husband, who I was happy to meet the three of them in Rishikesh last year, and it was beautiful to just be with them together, and there was a lovely threesomeness about them. You know, that there was just a sweetness about them being together. That really struck me at the time, and that changed radically when Robert passed away due to a heart attack in January. And so Unmani has been living this, and maybe you want to take over from there, Unmani. Just speak to us about where you're at now, which is roughly a bit less than 2 months later. So thank you for being willing to share with us, Unmani.
Well, thank you, Grace. Yeah, it's lovely to be able to share, actually. I'm really finding that sharing is actually very helpful for me personally, and it seems to be very helpful for other people who also have experienced death of their loved ones. And even if you haven't yet, you will at some point. You know, we all have to go through this, so it seems to be relevant for everybody. But yeah, I've a couple of months, because that seems to be how it goes with this grieving process. You know, no matter what I've read about the different stages of grief and all of this, it's so different if you actually live it. It's not that you go through one stage and then another stage and then another. It's that it can be waves of this and waves of that by the minute or the hour. And it's really mind-blowing because, you know, you never know where you stand, really, or, you know, there's no conclusion to come to. It's ever-changing. Yeah, so obviously at the beginning it was mostly a lot of shock because it happened so suddenly and really out of the blue. He seemed to be healthy and happy and everything was fine, and then suddenly he was gone. And you know, I couldn't believe it. No matter how much somehow I prepared myself for it, I somehow had a sense, since we met about just over 4 years ago, and we fell in love, and you know, I realized that this is a connection that I've never had before. This is a real meeting, a meeting that yeah, is beyond these two bodies meeting. And as much as these two bodies obviously enjoyed each other as well, and let's not deny the two bodies, but there was somehow a meeting beyond that, that neither of us really could put our finger on or really understand. And so we both found ourselves just throwing ourselves into this connection, this love together without reservation, no longer wanting to compromise as we might have done in past relationships. So we both were totally open to each other, and nothing held back. And so with that sense that nothing was held back, there seemed to be a knowing that I will lose this at the same time, as that beautiful bearing of everything to each other, knowing that it comes hand in hand with losing, and there's no escape from that. So I knew that, and I often found myself kind of weirdly feeling waves of grief. Even when he was in bed next to me, I'd feel this grief of losing him in advance. And I didn't understand it. And it was, why am I being silly? He's right there next to me. So when it actually happened, at first I thought, well, am I just imagining this? Just like in all those times when I felt this losing, but actually was still here. And so, just really facing the reality that no, actually it's not just a preparation, it's the real thing. And at first the real feeling of ripping, the ripping apart, just losing the man that I love, and my team partner, in this life, and also the father of Sky, who is he's just over 2.5, and just seeing, suddenly realizing that Sky doesn't have a father anymore. His beloved daddy, that they were more like little friends than father and son. They were great together. Just such fun and ease. Realizing that is gone. So the first little while, like, I don't even know if to put any time frame on it, but the first while was really shock, and this sense that he, of ripping apart. And as time's gone by, the shock has worn off, although sometimes I still have a wave of disbelief, which is very similar to the shock. It's like, really? Nah, come on. As the shock seemed to wear off, it became more raw. Really, the raw pain of, no, he's really gone. No, really. And there was this, trying to kind of understand, where could he have gone, in a limited way, knowing that on one hand it can't be understood, and yet still in a very human way there was a trying to understand what the hell has just happened here. This wasn't supposed to happen, this wasn't in the program. We just got married 4.5 months ago, a beautiful wedding, and we talked about renewing our vows every year, and having a new wedding ring every year, every time we renew our vows. And we laughed about, eventually we'll be able to wear a necklace with all our wedding rings on it from all the years. And the shock, I only have one. This wasn't supposed to happen. I only have one ring. And it's a real heartbreak, and missing my dear friend and love. And yeah, the waves of that as it hits me in different ways. And also alongside all of this, a real sense that he hasn't gone anywhere. And this sense is not just, I mean, I sense that in two main different ways. One is that he wasn't here in the first place, really. You know, in the same way as I'm not really here as this entity in here, I'm not in this body looking out of these eyes. There's no one in here, there's no one in there. And in the same way as, you know, when we were together, when he was alive here, we often joked about, you know, who are these two people who are relating to each other? You know, we don't know, but we're watching them. But who are we actually? Who am I? And that sense of no one really being here, that hasn't changed. And then in the other way that I feel that he hasn't gone anywhere is really a kind of an energetic sense, or an ethereal kind of sense, that after a couple of weeks, I felt him kind of slip away further and kind of dissolve into somehow a higher self, a bigger self, his essence as fullness, as love. Yeah, and that's with me all the time. So I would say that lately I'm more with that sense. Not that the waves of heartbreak aren't still here and they don't still come. They do, very much so. And not just heartbreak, everything, all the other phases of grief, they still come. It's only, you know, just under 2 months. So it's still very fresh. And I feel that this is just the beginning of a big process, and of, you know, unfolding, losing myself once again. That's kind of in a nutshell roughly where I am now. Not that I could really put my finger on where I am now, really, because it's ever changing. In the next moment, it could be completely different, but that's kind of roughly it.
Thank you. And you know what struck me most about what you've been sharing now, which feels it's so full, you know, there's a fullness about your sharing this, and the directness that resonates very, very strongly with everybody. I mean, with me, and I know with others too, because they've shared so on Facebook. And you know, you've done 2 meetings with people yourself, sharing this experience, and they've appreciated this too. So there is, you know, what's there as you're speaking is that fullness of the, you know, the love that simply is, and the fullness of that, the peace of that, the love of that. And at the same time, you know, the very human experience, the human heartbreak, the loss, the grief, you know, those waves that just keep happening. And, you know, I haven't lost a very close loved one in my life, but whenever I've seen people go through this and accompanied people going through this, there seems to be the side by side of, you know, the loss and the love.
Yeah.
The human unfolding, the waves of whatever comes, and that knowing of love, you know, that blessed state of just knowing nothing has been lost. It's all there. And, you know, as you're sharing, it's both there. And that's what's so beautiful, is to, and that's what's communicating itself, that it's possible to go through this experience, to kind of be in the waves, and yet at the same time, you know, there's this knowing that it's just a human, it's a human unfolding. It's happening at that more embodied level. But that's not all to the experience that there is.
Yeah, yeah, and it doesn't make sense. You know, it doesn't fit into some mental concept or belief system. You know, it's really such a contradiction, really. How can you know that nothing is lost and really know that? And not just as a mental concept, but just, you know, really, really know that, and still experience that everything's been lost. You know, how is that possible that both are true? But it is like that. You know, this is not just in grief, of course, in life in general. It just seems to be, you know, quite extremely obvious in grief. But you know, in general, of course, these waves of life, of the very human experience, happen in knowing that nothing's happening, actually.
Maybe there's something about the rawness of that human experience that makes it more accessible to people, you know, that paradox of both. And also because it gets to the root of our embodied experience, you know, the fact that this is not going to last, not for us and not for anybody.
Yeah.
So that being face to face with death, with, you know, the temporariness of this human existence somehow makes that bothness more accessible, you know, or more obvious maybe. I don't know. But even people, you know, even people who have who are not, you know, who are not touched by non-dual teachings, you know, there's still this dual experience often, you know, at the same time they feel the heart-wrenching loss and the love. And it just seems to somehow, you know, that experience of loss of a loved one seems to, you know, it just opens the door for a very truthful experience of both the humanness, the human unfolding, and the eternal, you know, however we call it. That which doesn't come and go.
It is really about facing our own death. You know, I mean, not only my husband, but also I faced death in a very real and confronting way through the whole experience, because I was there when he died, and in the whole process before he died. Well, it didn't take very long, but and then afterwards with his body. I stayed with his body for a while, and then about a week later, we cremated his body here in India, and in a very raw way, nothing covered, nothing pretty. Literally, his body was just placed on a pile of wood and burnt. And very different to how we normally do it in the West, where it's all kind of covered up and you don't get to really see the raw nature of it, and the changes in his body having been dead for more than a week. These things are not pretty and sweet, but there's something so real about it, and really confronting the reality of this. For me, it has been a wonderful gift. I mean, for me, it is also about being intimate with the man that I love, also in death. And knowing that that intimacy, it isn't confined to only sweet and nice stuff. It goes in any and every direction, and so watching somebody else, especially someone close to you, die, it does, you start to acknowledge, well, of course, this is the nature of life. We all are going to die physically, and these bodies are temporary. We watch them growing and changing, getting older. At some point, something's going to happen, and we're going to die. It was a little unfortunate that it happened so soon with Robert, but it had to happen at some point. And what is time anyway? Whether it happens now or in another 20, 30, 40 years, what's the difference? A bit more time. But still, we have to face it in the end.
And what's interesting is that somehow the fullness of the experience can be felt, regardless of how much time the experience was lived. Like there can be a sense of just the beauty and the gift of what was experienced, whether it was 4 months or 4 years or 40 years. Somehow that appreciation doesn't seem to need time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Actually, in one way, I feel fortunate that I didn't have so much time. In another way, I feel the opposite, but because we would have had more time to feel dependent on each other or get used to each other, and maybe it would have been even harder afterwards. Of course, then I feel the other way around as well. Why didn't we have more time? Yeah. Especially for Sky, for my son. It would have been wonderful to have more time with his dad growing up. Yeah.
And I read your Facebook post today that you feel that somehow the relationship between you and Sky is changing, because somehow Robert is there in a different way now. So, it just unfolds as it does.
Yeah, it's been amazing actually, the whole process with Sky, with it all. because I've tried to be as open and honest and truthful about everything. And he's quite an intelligent, sensitive 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old. And he really gets it. He really gets it. And amazingly, I mean, the moment when I had to tell him that, Daddy's dead, was, I wouldn't wish that job on anybody. But he took it. He took it as this is now the reality, and he. He's asked some questions since then, and he's obviously felt some strong emotions as well, and some confusion. But generally, he's really doing great. And sometimes he's seen me crying, and I try not to do really big cries in front of him, but I don't want to scare him. But at the same time, I want him to see that actually being sad and crying or other emotions are very natural and normal. Sorry, I do actually hear him crying now. I have to just check 1 second.
Yes, sure.
Sorry.
That's the beauty of live events, and the reality of Unmani's life now, that she no longer has Robert supporting her in her work. Is he okay?
Yes, he's fine actually. He's sleeping, but I actually wasn't him. It must be some other child nearby, but because of the headphones, I wasn't sure. I had to check.
Yeah.
That's the thing, I don't have Robert here to watch Sky. So I was just talking about how Sky is dealing with it very well. Sometimes still asks the occasional question, but we talk about Robert like he's still here in a way. Sky loves to blow bubbles, and Robert loved to blow bubbles as well. So today we were blowing bubbles for Daddy. They're a regular thing that we do.
Beautiful. Yeah. And how is it for you? I mean, now, you're a single mom, and that can be scary, and yet at the same time it's a concept, it's a projection, but it's also reality. And you had to go check just now because you had to make sure that Sky is okay, because Robert isn't there to support you in that way in the background with Sky.
Yeah, it's a big adjustment now, in a practical way, because we really shared parenting. He was very involved. We, in the last week, especially being here in India, we would split the day so that one person would be with Sky and the other person would be able to do other things, work or do things we wanted to do, and then we'd change over. And so each day Sky would get a lot of one-to-one attention from both of us. And also, while I'm doing, I do a lot of online work, online sessions. Robert would be with Sky and holding meetings, retreats. Robert would be with Sky, so it's a big adjustment now. I'm not quite sure yet how it's going to work, Lately it's just a matter of either timing it so he's asleep or asking a friend, to be with Sky. But it's really a juggling act, so that I can still keep doing what I love to do, and being with Sky. And it's a lot to juggle. It is. It's a lot of practical things that a child needs to be taken care of. I have to watch him all the time, whereas before I had someone else who was also watching him.
Yeah.
If we were out somewhere, we'd share the watching.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just me.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. It is a lot. And at first I was kind of like, oh, it's too much. Why did you leave me? But more and more I feel I'm okay. I just need to ask for help and trust that it comes, and it does.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. When I just started to ask for help, we found a great babysitter who's just been wonderful with Sky, taking him out exploring in nature and building things, and just fantastic, more than I would have hoped for even. And I've been taking him to a little kindergarten in the mornings, and he's settling in quite well there. So so actually it's working out really well, practically. I can't be as fun and cool and play football and all that as his dad. I can't be mum and dad. I can only do my best. I can do what I can. I have to juggle my needs and Sky's needs. So when I let go of needing to be both Robert and me, or to be the perfect mum or some super, then actually it's all okay, and we're managing, we're okay. And as you said, we're bonding in a way that is new. It's of course we were very close also before when Robert was here. But it's the three of us, so we were a love triangle, and now we're the two of us, and so it's taken some time to really build that connection. That now it's the two of us that are the team. Mm-hmm. We still talk about Robert. He's still part of our family, but he's not. But practically, he's not part of the team anymore. He can't be. He would love to be, but he can't be. And this has taken some time to build up to this, but it's building up trust for Sky also, that his mum is not just going to disappear the way his dad did. But he's really doing fine. It's amazing, actually, how he's an inspiration, really.
Beautiful. It's like that. It feels like losing Robert really has meant losing like a whole support system for your own life and the parenting. And so somehow it just asks for such a level of trust in life to say, okay, this is what's here now. And however that unfolds, it will as it needs to, and as it will.
And it doesn't mean that there isn't fear sometimes. Also on that very human level, sometimes there's fear of, like, how will I cope, or not even specific fears, actually. I mean, it's hard to really separate them out. It's just a wave of fear. But that doesn't mean that there isn't trust. The trust is much bigger. And the trust holds even the fear, so that it's okay to be afraid, and at the same time know that it's fine just the way it is. And that's again one of those contradictions, those paradoxes of how can there be fear if there's trust? But the trust is not an attitude of trusting, and it's not dependent on the fact that there's no fear. It's such a big trust that it holds everything. And I really, we've kind of figured out some way of dealing with things in these weeks that we're here in India. But after that, again, I don't know. And again, we have to trust and, put out there, what is needed, and hope that life provides somehow, Being open to surprises as well, because the support may not come in the way that I think it should, or expect it to, or I'm used to, or may become in a totally different form.
Yeah. It often does, doesn't it? When we're really open to just receiving what's needed, somehow things come in ways that we couldn't even know.
Yeah. And it's funny how soon after Robert died, several friends were suggesting or expecting me to just obviously go back to England and live with my parents and let them take care of me and Sky, as if we would, out of fear, and we're just so in desperate, dire need that we would obviously just run back there in terror. And I had no intention of doing that at all. Not that it wouldn't be nice to stay with my parents here and there, to have a visit, but I don't feel that now suddenly I have to change my life and change everything, the way that we live, because the way we live, for anybody who doesn't know, is that we travel around. We don't have a home. I haven't had a home for years. I mean, a home base. And when Robert and I came together, we traveled around like that without having a home base. And then we had Sky, and the three of us were traveling around like that. And now without Robert doesn't mean that suddenly I should change everything and be, in one fixed place out of fear. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I don't want to buy into fear. And it doesn't mean that I won't settle in some home base at some point. Maybe I will. But for now, it's just about putting one foot in front of the other, seeing what feels right, seeing what comes, what's right for me, what's right for Sky. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Unmani, I just really feel that what you're sharing is such a teaching in itself. It's just so I don't even know how to say this. So close to the truth of the human experience. Maybe that's a good way of saying it. So
yeah. Well, I am human,
Yes. Just
and divine, both.
Yes. And that's why it's a teaching, because when you share the human experience, it doesn't deny the divinity. It doesn't deny the truth of of your being.
No, and I find that I have to keep repeating that when I'm sharing these very human posts on Facebook or even because so often we tend to land on one side of the paradox or the other.
Yes.
And I really want to emphasize again and again that it's both simultaneously, and that one doesn't exclude the other. Because, you know, often people will hear me speaking about these very human experiences, feelings, you know, whatever human stuff, and then try to suggest that I should be more aware or more non-dual, or you know, that I should acknowledge the other side and forget the human. Or when I speak about the non-dual, let's say, or the that is beyond it all, that is aware and where nothing has changed, that some people are like, yes, but what about the human, you know? But it's really both. It's really, really both. And when you acknowledge that that I am life itself, awareness itself, freedom itself, then I am free to totally dive into the human play without reservation, because nothing is ever lost. You know, I don't need to hold on to awareness. I don't need to hold on to some special experience of peace or distancing from this human play. I can completely lose myself and drown this human experience.
We lost your sound there, but
Because
I drown in the human experience.
Drown.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, because there's nothing that can be lost. Yeah. I am always life itself, but I'm also playing as this human, the wife.
Oh dear, Unmani, you're really breaking up at the moment. Can you repeat what you said? Unmani, are you still with us? Hi, Unmani. She's gone dark. So let me just look. There's a message on the chat. Yes, there's a question. There's a question about our questions part of this. Hi, Unmani.
I've changed the network, so hopefully it should be all right.
Okay. Since there was an interruption, there is a question there. Should I wait with the question? I think I will wait. And maybe just because I was coming to this, you know, like how has this experience, you know, those 2 months, how has that changed your teaching at all? Do you feel that you would maybe express things differently, be differently? You know, how is that? Has that experience really changed anything? And if so, what? Has it changed the expression? Has it changed the way you say things?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I think I got thrown out. We have a storm going on here, so.
Oh, okay. It was you, not me. I thought it.
It was
me. Okay, so everybody else could hear me saying, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?"
I think so. Yeah.
Good. All right.
the beauty about Zoom meetings is that they go on even though I may be thrown out. And we do have a bit of a storm happening here.
So yes, so you asked me whether my teaching had changed or well, I've been holding open, and so it's relatively new that I've died, and these couple of weeks of meetings, have kind of naturally been focusing on this subject, really, of grief, loss, death, love, and so in that way it's changed because it's we're focusing on these subjects, and yeah, I mean, I guess since Robert died, I felt quite vulnerable. He was often in the meetings with me, and so to not have him there, at least not physically, has left me feeling quite exposed, more than I've been used to recently, the last few years of him being with me. And so I've had to find different ways to support myself in that. Yeah, but it's, every time I hold a meeting, it's very different. It's, yeah, so it's ever changing, it's always been ever changing, this expression, this teaching. It's always changing. And of course, this is bound to affect the expression. I'm not sure even how yet. Maybe more raw, more exposing of the human.
Yes, it kind of occurs to me that how do I say that? Sometimes the human personality wants to kind of shelter itself and make things safe. So somehow certain things aren't shared when we're in a teaching role, And so what I feel has happened with you is that you've just been willing to be totally open about the human experience. And something in that is just so directly speaking to people, because there's no holding back, because there's no sheltering anything, because maybe it feels too vulnerable or too raw, or there's no protection. And that's the gift of you sharing this with everybody.
Yeah. I found that before Robert died, I wasn't so into Facebook, really. I was, sometimes I would share something, but it just didn't feel a medium that I felt comfortable with, because people also always misinterpret your words, and I prefer to have more of a face-to-face contact with people. And I still prefer that. But somehow I've been using Facebook as just a way of pouring out the outpouring, the overflow that's happening here. It's just been, I always love to write, and so this is just a way for me to write. And If it touches people, great. That's the bonus, because really I'm doing it for myself. It's this love of that overflow and exploring myself, expressing myself.
You're not doing it just for yourself. That's very clear to me. You're actually doing it for so many people. It's such a beautiful gift. And I think it's a time to hand over to questions to people.
Yeah.
So let me just go to the chat. There's a message from Monica to everyone. Thank you for being here, Unmani. It's a great help for me, and I'm sure for all of us. How can we accept to lose the body, the shape of who we love?
I assume you're talking about your own body?
No, as far as I can tell, is she's talking about...
Yeah, maybe there's no difference, really, whether it's your own body or somebody else's body.
So I'm assuming she's talking about a loved one.
Yeah, although it can also be the shape of the body that you love of your own. But okay, maybe it's no difference, really. I mean, because the answer is perhaps the same. That in many ways you can't accept it. It's very human to not accept. And that's certainly a phase that I've been through with losing Robert, just really not accepting this. And of course it doesn't make sense because I have to accept it. This is the reality. But at the same time, I don't accept it. No. And a lot of anger. How the hell could this have happened? I do not accept. No. And that's a very important thing to acknowledge, that there are some things that we just don't want to accept. And that not accepting is very human and natural. We don't need to try to kind of cover that over with some sweet acceptance, which isn't real. I would say more that it's about accepting whatever is actually here. So if what is actually here is non-acceptance, well, that's what's here. So you don't need to try to accept anything, but actually see that the acceptance, the real acceptance, is actually another word for who you are. That acceptance accepts everything without exception, even non-acceptance. Losing the body, not losing the body. It just holds it all in absolute acceptance.
It's interesting to me how somehow it's like, acceptance becomes a spiritual concept, and then we need to be accepting, and the non-acceptance is not okay. So it's like maybe just trusting that whatever shows up at that human level just simply needs to be there, it's what shows up. So, and of course it's part of it's who we are in this moment. So there's something about acceptance and acceptance as a concept, and somehow it's finding back to just being in whatever shows up, and trusting that, and it's hard to even put words to that.
I see someone else has their hand raised.
Yes, actually I want to say, before I get to you, Kate, I see that you raised your hand. Momo was asking a question on the chat, which I lost when I got thrown out. So, Momo, if you want to repeat your question, please. And yeah, also just to repeat, okay, here she is. Can you speak to what serves you in this way of living without a home base? Also, basically, how to make choices, even if we accept all.
On a human level. What serves me in this way of living without a home base? I'm not really sure I understand that question. How to make choices I can respond to, but I don't understand the question about what serves me in this way of living without a home base. Do you understand?
I don't know. Yeah, I think her question is, why have you chosen to live in this way without a home base?
Okay, she's just written that, yeah. I didn't. I didn't choose it. It seems to be this unfolding that has just happened and goes on happening. Sometimes I choose, or I think I choose, to find a home base, and that just doesn't happen. Robert and I were looking for a home base in Portugal for the last more than a year. We've been checking out different places, but it just hasn't happened. We just didn't find the place. And now it's clear why, obviously, because it wasn't meant to happen with him. But it just hasn't happened. Yeah. Now, that leads us on to how to make choices. It's one of those paradoxes, really, because on one hand, it seems that we can make a choice, out of, we could choose this over that. But on the other hand, everything that happens is happening in that we really are. So when we identify, when we know ourselves to be that life itself, let's say, hang on, I have to sneeze. No, I don't. Just a tickle. Maybe it'll come in a minute. Yeah, so what was I saying about making choices? So everything is happening in who we are. So actually, it's never that I am choosing anything, really, even though it seems to be. It's one of those contradictions of the human and that is beyond the human. The human seems to make a choice, but actually, whatever choice the human seems to make is just a movement of life itself. A wave of energy in this direction or that. So knowing that, there's a surrender to that. You could try to bulldoze over that, and most people do live like that, as if I am the one that is making the choice, and then you kind of don't really listen or sense where that movement of life is really taking you, moment to moment. But when you start to see that actually the thinking doesn't have all the answers, then actually it makes you much more sensitive to these waves of life, these waves of energy. And then you see, okay, well, this is just what's happening. I surrender. Not that you should just be passive. It's certainly not an attitude of passivity, because you may find yourself doing a lot, taking a lot of action, but the action is also in line with that wave of energy, that's life moving you to take that action.
Hmm. Thank you. I hope that makes sense to people. It makes a lot of sense to me. You know, it's like when the action doesn't come from thought, you know, it's just energy moving, and it moves this way or it moves that way.
Yeah.
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 Kate, I'm going to unmute you. So you're unmuted. Would you like to ask your question?
Hi, Kate.
Hello, Kate. Hmm.
We can't hear you.
Yes, she is unmuted, so I don't know whether she's still around. Yeah, I'm sorry. Kate, can you please let us know whether you still want to ask your question? Thank you. Maybe on the chat. I'm going to lower your hand. So if you like to ask a question, please raise your hand again. And just to say to people, if you want to raise your hand, what you do is you click on the participants icon on the toolbar, and this brings up a little window, and at the bottom of the window there's a button that says raise hand. So that's how you raise your hand. I'm also just for a second going to switch to gallery view and see whether anybody else wants to ask a question. You can actually wave to me. Yeah, okay. From Kate, okay. Okay, Kate didn't seem to be able to unmute herself. So yes, just raise your hand again, Kate. Hello, Kate. Can you say something, Kate?
She's still muted. Oh, no.
No, she's unmuted. Kate, go ahead,
Okay.
say something. Okay, Kate, I'm not sure what the issue is there. It's on her end. I can see her talking, Maureen says. Kate, you are unmuted from in the Zoom meeting, so I'm not sure what the issue is. Maybe you could type your question. In the meantime, I'm going to call on Anna. I'm going to unmute you, Anna. Hello,
Hi.
Anna.
Hi.
Hi.
Just jumping in. I was thinking about aligning the action and how to like flow with these waves that you say of doing, but not coming from conditioning and fear or, So is there a way that you have or something that can help us flow in this kind of divine spontaneity and creativity?
Not really a way. It's lovely to see you, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah, you have a lovely smile.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, not really a way, but acknowledging who you really are as life itself. which is nothing to do with your thoughts, then this flow of creativity, energy, waves of whatever happens by itself. You don't need to try to cultivate it. It's just identifying with it. And it's not always positive, it's not always happy or high. It might not always feel good, but it's just whatever life is bringing. So if you expect it to feel good, then perhaps you overlook the way it actually is. You see, because what we're talking about is not about feeling better, or being able to live a better life. It's about the truth. It's about reality. And so that may be that at times, the flow or the waves of energy of life move you in places or situations where it doesn't feel great. For example, in my situation now, after Robert died, well, for sure it doesn't feel great. But on the other hand, it feels perfect. I know it's perfect. So it doesn't have to feel good. It's not it doesn't feel perfect. It's more of a knowing that it's perfect. Yeah.
So it's just sometimes I have this impulse to do something like, oh yeah, let's do this, and then these waves of like thoughts come and like, what if this happens, or what if people doesn't like it, or all these fears. And so I find myself in situations where I kind of stuck and don't know what to do. And so I like to tune in with that security of, okay, but as you say, there's no safe ground.
No, that's the point. There's no safe ground, but you can see that those thoughts are just thoughts, and that, of course, everybody may hate what you do, but it's just a thought still that is worried about that. And okay, there may be sensations that go along with it, like, and then you could feel those sensations, but don't believe those thoughts that interpret the sensations and make them mean something about you or about other people. The thoughts are just, it's like this running commentary of blah, blah, blah. And, they can be very entertaining. Yeah, they can be very entertaining, but, really, they're just, blah, blah, blah. And so, bringing the attention to the physical sensations, feeling the fear, and seeing that even the fear isn't a real block or a boundary that needs to, or like some kind of mountain that you need to climb. It's just a sensation. And knowing that, then there's no block for that flow, that wave of creativity. It's you. So that's why I'm saying it's more about identifying with it rather than doing something to cultivate. Because usually you identify with your thoughts, as if these thoughts are something about you. What we're saying actually is that these thoughts don't mean anything about you or about anybody. They're just talking about you, but who are you?
Yeah. It's like even sensations are made of this awareness, but they're just protecting this of fear of losing a point of reference. Am I going to disappear if I yeah. Already, I mean, I'm already made of nothing. I'm still here.
Yeah, that's that paradox right there. Made of nothing, and yet here you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a joke. It is just a joke. You know, and because you're made of nothing and here you are, you may as well play fully in this life and not hold back, not take fear seriously. You know, I see you have a guitar standing there. Are we talking about performing? Is that what you're sometimes afraid of?
I love playing the guitar, but I still don't like to share. So yeah, I like art, and yes.
Well, maybe I can share something that, you know, is a fantastic guitar player and singer. And I watched him grow in his courage to perform more and more. He performed his own, and more he was performing on his own, and then also writing his own songs, and then performing those, and it just really blossoming in that way. And so, you know, it seemed to me that it was more and more about, you know, he was just playing this person fully without holding back, you know, because this is, you know, you're made of nothing, right? Why not play fully this Anna person? It's amazing. So, you know,
My
it's
heart's
feeling the fear and just go for it. Yeah, and take that heart with you.
Thank you very, very much. Really.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And, I think you're very lovely, really. And thank you for sharing your humanness. Yeah.
My pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And I'm going to, oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing yourself so openly, Anna. You're doing this for all of us, everybody here. So I think yes, you're muted again. Kate, I'm going to try and unmute you one more time. Let's see, you're unmuted on the Zoom end. Can you try and speak? Okay, well, there's something definitely not happening. But Kate wrote a message on the chat. She says, I just wanted to meet Unmani and say, firstly, thank you for sharing your raw experience. But also my heart wants to reach out and enfold you and say, I feel your pain and I'm so sorry for you and Sky's loss, for your and Sky's loss. I am so with you, Unmani, and enfold you both in my love.
Thank you so much, Kate. I really feel you. Yeah.
We're all with you in this mind.
Yeah.
Sweet Unmani, much love from somebody. There's no name, just a number, phone number. Maybe also be Dio Unmani. Not sure what's written there. Love you.
What did you say, Guri?
Sorry, not sure exactly what the first word was. There's also a message from Corinne Coram. Love you, dearest, beautiful Unmani.
I think I know that Corinne from quite a few years ago. I think it's the same one. I'm not sure. But yes, love you too, and good to hear from you. Whether it is you. Yes, I knew it.
Yes, it is her. And there's a message from Grit. Thanks, Unmani, for sharing. Last night I watched your meeting in Goa, and I was so touched by your overflowing of love.
Thank you, Grit.
You know, it's so beautiful, Unmani. You know what you're giving to everybody is just so precious. And you know, at the human level, we also feel your loss and your, you know, your heartbreak. And I guess we all want you to know that you're not alone in this.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I feel very held by everybody. It touches me deeply. Yeah. There's, there's such an overflow happening here, whether it's in tears or in just expression and love and everything.
You know, I just had a thought, and it's a thought. But it's okay also to want to understand things. And the thought was somehow Robert's passing and opening back into this freedom of being fully, you know, without the human form. Somehow it's liberated you to be even more fully in this human form and the human expression of it all, you know, and it's like, it's such a beautiful gift. I'm sorry, I keep repeating myself, but it is a beautiful gift. It's so precious.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've lived in a way that in this very human way, but I haven't always shared it so publicly. And that's yeah, I guess that's a big difference. And share. I mean, I do in my meetings and retreats, but yeah, but online on Facebook, there's a big difference. But also, I guess the way Robert lived was very much. I mean, he certainly wasn't public at all, but he was very open about being so very human. And you know, in a way, I feel like I'm embodying him in a way as well. You know, we always have this kind of joke between, well, it's kind of a painful joke in a way that we're kind of these two bodies were in between us. So and these two bodies could never get close enough. You know, they were always separated by the fact that they were two separate bodies, right? And so when he died, and I was alone with his body, I shouted at him, "Now you get inside my body. Now you have no excuses." So, so you know, I feel like somehow he has. You know, it doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying that, you know, that makes any kind of logical sense, but yeah, you know, I feel like I honor him by exposing every little bit of this human trip.
Wow. That's so beautiful. I mean, to me, it makes total sense. You know, it's like somehow you're coming together with that gift of total vulnerability for you. And now that he's no longer there, it's like you're holding it. You're embodying it.
Yeah. That's why I feel like we're not, I mean, not separate, but that he hasn't gone anywhere because he's here in me. Where else could he go?
If it's okay with you, Unmani, I'd just like to take a minute or two just to honor this. You know, this mystery. Just be still and allow that to really be here. There's a few more comments from Marijke. Love will holding you. Not sure. Probably means love will hold you. And from Silke, so deep, beloved Unmani. We need someone who dares to share our human nature so rawly. Thank you, thank you. And from Hi Silke, I think I know who you are. And from Laura, I love that. Get inside my body, so beautiful and relatable, she said. And from Kate, that's beautiful. You and Robert are now in one body. I'm so sorry I have to leave meeting now. I love you so much, Unmani. You're so beautiful. Deep love and respect. So I'm wondering whether anybody else has a question left for Unmani.
Yeah, because it's getting late for me actually, and I'm getting a bit tired. It's already after 11 at night, so
Yes.
And Sky wakes me up at the crack of dawn. So yeah.
Yes, so I was going to say I feel your tiredness, so maybe it's just time to stop. And
Yeah.
I don't see any other raised hand or question or comment on the chat. So I just want to thank you, Unmani. There's a thank you on the chat. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I see that from old friend Bill on the chat. Yeah. Hi, Bill.
So thank you, Unmani. Thank you so much. It's been a beautiful start to this meeting, and all my love to you and Sky. And just keep us posted on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. Yeah. Thank you very much, Grace, for hosting this. It's been lovely, and thank you to everybody who's been here, and to everybody who will be watching this at some point in the future as well. Okay, yeah.
So Momo says, thank you, dearly Unmani, much love. And thank you all for coming. I think Unmani has, Unmani, are you still here?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. I just thought you might have left us. So I just want to say, if you'd like to support Unmani directly, you can go to our website and make a donation there. If you'd like to support these conversations, you can go to the Living from Love website and make a donation there on the donation page. And we'll see you again in a week's time. Actually, no, next Saturday. No, in a week's time for the next conversation with Joan Tollefson about cancer as an awakening journey. So wishing you so well. Thank you again, Unmani. Thank you to all of you for joining.
Thank you. Bye.
And bye-bye.
Bye. Good night.
Until next